the affordability session?
There's 5 areas. So this is from the research showing you how much it is currently taking. So this per learner, in terms of time at administration, is taking an administrator about 6 hours per learner per year. And if you take it based on the administrative cost, it's costing you about 346 Rand. The postage cost is costing about 2,000 Rand per learner per year in different forms of postage. And the assessment cost is, and assessors are kind of spending about 10 hours of the portfolio sessions. This is not assessing. This is over and above assessing. It's taking about this type of amount of time combined with the ad.
Just to open to the panel, let's maybe kick off. We were talking pounds and rands. In terms of our UK partners, what is your feeling around assessment affordability? What challenges or opportunities have you faced in this space, Susanna?
Yeah, so hi everybody. So I'm Susanna Lawson. As introduced, I'm the founder of OneFile. I actually founded OneFile in my back bedroom in Manchester in England 17 years ago, seeing exactly what Darren and the team saw myself. I was an apprenticeship vocational assessor and manager, and just saw huge inefficiencies in the ways that I was driving out and doing assessments on paper, and thought that I could build a solution. I didn't know how I was going to do it because I wasn't a techie, but after a chance conversation with my boyfriend, now husband, he was the techie, and we realized that we could put our complementary skills together. So 17 years on, we've got a team of over 80. We've had 1.3 million users, 1.3 million users of OneFile, and we have over 700 colleges, training providers, universities and employers that deliver their own apprenticeship assessment themselves. So I exited OneFile in October. So we exited to a second largest Canadian company. So I'm now the founder, not the CEO, which I'm just getting used to. I'm just transitioning after 17 years. So in the UK, like I said, when I was that tutor or the assessor going out and doing the assessments, I just thought there was a huge wastage of finances to my employer. My background was care. I was driving out to nursing homes, delivering training to carers in nursing homes. One of my nursing homes was a 3-hour drive away. I would get up at 5 a.m. to get there for an 8 o'clock shift change, which I had to observe. I'd arrive at 8 a.m. after a nice 3-hour drive, and the apprentice or the student would turn around to me and, "Oh, I forgot you were coming today. I've left my file at home." And I'd be like, "Oh my goodness, I can't see you." I mean, the next one's visibility, but I had no visibility of where they're up to. So, I had a 6-hour round trip, returns of £400, which is phenomenal. But also we have one college that really bucked the trend, and I don't often quote them because it just sounds too ridiculous, really. They made a £35,000 investment into OneFile, and the college saved £450,000, which is just incredible. But like I say, that is, far end. It was, really high return on investment. And we've also got a provider that said they saved 81% on their printing and paper costs. So, not just the travel, it's everything else like it's got on here. You've got the postage, you've got the travel time, you've got the petrol or the diesel cost, the gas costs. I'm trying to diesel, gas, petrol. So there's just so much. And then, we built an app, and our app, we got quoted that it was saving the assessors 6 hours per week each, which again, if you work out the productivity of that, is absolutely phenomenal. And you take that to 50 assessors, 100 assessors. I mean, we've got training providers in the UK with 200 assessors. So if they're all saving 6 hours a week, that's years of productivity that can be saved, which is phenomenal. It also talks in the research about the sort of the feedback. And it was very similar to what we found. So when I was delivering, I would go and see a student on month 1. I would set them off with some work. I would then go and see them in month 2 with no visibility in the meantime. Now, when I go back in month 2, and quite often they would say, I haven't done the work, or I've done it and I've left it at home, I then wouldn't be able to see it until the third month, which is crazy. Whereas using an e-portfolio, I could set the work with them at 9 a.m. I could travel on to the next appointment. By lunchtime, they could have done it in their lunch break. I could give them feedback. And then even if they have to do some extra work on it, I could have it back by that evening. And that was what was happening on OneFile. So what was taking a two-month turnaround was now taking less than 24 hours, which means that the student is more motivated because they're getting feedback on their work. It's not taking them 2 months to get feedback. And then as an assessor, I'm hitting my targets because I'm not falling behind as much. And also then my provider that I was working for is getting their payments for hitting milestones a lot quicker as well. So there's a lot there. One of our customers in the States was actually the Golf Course Superintendents Association of America, which was never one that I ever thought I'd never even heard of, but they were recommended to OneFile, and all managers of golf courses, trainee managers of golf courses, had to do a portfolio of evidence, and they were doing it all on paper, and they were posting it at the end around the state, which was costing an absolute fortune, and then they'd get it right at the end. So they hadn't had visibility throughout the assessment, and then when there was work to be redone, they had to post it back to the golf course around the states with the feedback in. Whereas now, again, using OneFile, they're able to just, as soon as they finish a piece of work, they're able to get sort of feedback formatively, partway through the course, not waiting to the end. And then just finally, we found that assessors, I don't know what kind of caseloads that everybody has, and even in the UK, it massively differs. But we had customers saying that their assessor caseloads used to be about 30 on paper because there was so much administrative time to do and travel time. But using OneFile, they were able to double that to 60, which was absolutely phenomenal. And apparently the assessors weren't even complaining about that workload at 60 because it still felt manageable. Whereas even at 30, they were complaining they had too many students. And I'll leave that one there. Thank you.
Wonderful. I mean, those are really great savings, and I think those are just the obvious ones, right? There's many other unseen related savings, but in terms, let's go to Robin. What is your view?
I'll just say same as Susanna. I think she's covered everything. It's an obvious one. I think that the benefits of digital, and I think we've all got similar stories. I used to have a training organisation myself. They call them registered training organisations over here, and I had an RTO. We were working with the mines at the time, and we, even though we were on site full time at the mines and we'd have, say, 100 trainees on the mine site, we wanted to use practical observations and essentially gather an evidence portfolio and be on the job. So we wanted to make sure we had the right student's portfolio or assessment and meet the right student on the right day at the right time to speak to them, record conversations, take photos of their work, sign documents or whatever. And invariably what we found was working with these guys in the mine that were working across 3 shifts, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And we were there Monday to Thursday. To meet the right person on the right day with the right piece of paper in your hand at the time was pretty much impossible. And we just said, this was about 2012. We just said, maybe 2011, we just said, how are we going to do this? We just said, we'll just do it on an iPad. All right, problem solved. And we looked for apps, couldn't find any that seemed relevant. So we just said, we're all engineers, and we just said, we'll just make one. So we used FileMaker Pro, which is like Microsoft Access for Mac. Made this solution for gathering evidence in a mobile context, and you could check off criteria for different subjects and get a signature and take videos, photos, and all that sort of stuff. And we thought, well, this is great, and for what we wanted it for, it was very effective, but very simple. And I just started showing it to different training organisations over here, and the feedback was pretty typically, we need something like that, we need something like that, we need something like that. And we didn't even really think about the bigger picture, but we'd just done something that was just solving a problem for our own business. And the more people we spoke to, the more we got excited about the concept, really. And as we developed the concept, we and started thinking about, well, how are we going to sell this? We started thinking about the real true value to to a business. And it's not just a matter of, oh, it's just a more sensible way of gathering evidence, and you're not carrying paper around. You just get to eliminate the paper part of your process completely. So as part of the value proposition that we always used to put in front of a prospect when we were kind of trying to convert them into a thriving client, we just, rather than go into, because there's so many benefits across so many aspects of your business, whether it's transparency and visibility, or reduced travel time, or whatever. We used to do a really simple business case and just said, well, how many assessments are you doing? How many paper would it be for each assessment? And if they had 1,000 students, that would be on 10 subjects each per year, and each subject would have 3 assessments, then you quickly calculate, well, 30,000 assessments, and we'd put a simple cost calculator that'd say, well, it's going to cost you this much to print it. You probably got someone collating it. You probably got, someone putting them into pigeonholes, organizing them. You might post them, you might not. So we put a simple spreadsheet together that people could adjust and kind of fine tune. And the average we kind of found was, it was easy just to say, based on a paper process of printing, collating, posting and retaining, it was easy to articulate a $25 process per assessment. And most clients would pull us up in the meeting and say, no, we think it's a lot more than that based off the costs. But it was just an easy business case to say, well, that's the potential value. And as we work with clients, some use really, some have got really high volume processes where they're doing thousands in a week. Some have got lower volumes, but even if an RTO is spending $1 per assessment that they're putting through the system, and some have got spending as little as 10 cents per assessment because they're doing so much volume, the ROI, once you're qualified that they're saving good money, you don't need to focus on it. You just need to do more of it. So we've always kind of, we report to a client on a yearly basis, this is your kind of return on investment, and these are some of the numbers. And with one of our government clients, again, we sat through with this client and said, well, based off our original calculator that showed $24, you're saving about 70 to 1 for, $1 spent with us, you're saving $70. And they said, no, we've calculated our cost per assessment as more than $100. So, it's actually 4 times that. And for them to say to us that, instead of us trying to convince them, it's just fantastic. But it just speaks for itself. Every business is different, but there's such an opportunity to save money across a range of processes, whether you're using a digital process and you're uploading files to Dropbox and you're having to administrate that and move them around, or whether you're actually using a paper process. 99% of the time, the more you use it, the better off you're going to be. And we just really help people focus on getting the best outcomes they can and just driving the volume, really.
Thanks so much. And from a South African perspective, I mean, where it's mandatory to have to jump through a whole range of assessment hoops, with a significant amount of administration in the process. Jen or Rob, would you like to maybe just weigh in there slightly?
Rob, you can go. You're on mute.
Sorry, repeat that again. Sorry, a little bit, please.
So Robin. Not sorry.
Robin.
South African Rob.
I'm the instead one.
There we go. Instead.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just loving what I'm hearing about the different angles, different ways of resolving things. It's just brilliant stuff. We had a different kind of problem because we decided to go out into rural towns and villages to see whether it would be possible to deliver high quality training and to have it properly assessed in an environment where there was no sponsorship, no money. So we had to sort of push the technology as far as it could possibly go. And could I just say at the outset, my kind of central theme is built around mastery learning. And when you think about mastery learning, it implies assessment being part and parcel of learning, literally all the time. And once you build that into it, impossible to do, manually, but no problem once you built the software to do it. we just go through a massive amount of assessment, and it's all visible no matter where students are. We can know at any one time exactly where a particular student is if we wanted to, wherever they are. And so picture, for example, a little town called Tabanshu, close to the Lesotho border, goats on the streets kind of scene. And there you'll find a little center in a derelict school, providing training to people, some of whom will have got up at 5 in the morning to catch a bus from their outlying village to get into Tabanshu to do the training. And it's being run by an entrepreneur who's figuring out how to use Facebook marketing to reach his clients, and he's making it work as a little business. So cost-wise, we have to be, in a different ballpark altogether. And so it took us 5 years with the MICT CETA to finally get to the point where we could say, okay, we're teaching computer skills. So in that sense, it's fairly easy to build the training around simulations, because you can simulate what's going on the screen, and the student can use that in training, then they can be assessed on it. And so eventually the CETA agreed that a simulation-based assessment was a valid test of competency. Okay, so that was a huge step. And so with that in place, and we're still learning, we're still trying to get the thing functioning smoothly, but basically we're on the road of being able to produce an electronic portfolio of evidence based on the simulation-based assessments. And what struck us as we started to see the results coming through was how extraordinarily successful students can be once they've learned that they can succeed. They come out of an environment of being told that they're no good, they've failed most of their lives, they've got no hope, they've got no potential, etc., etc., etc. And suddenly they start, because our standard is 80%. No, it's your own choice, but we recommend you don't go on unless you've got at least 80%. And there are 140 assessments. They will go through at least 3,000 questions, 16,000 simulation steps in the course of the program. And because they're free to repeat as many times as they like, that number escalates. You can imagine they'd be dealing with maybe 10,000 questions. How does it happen? Either it's too easy, or else they're developing the motivation to make it work. And that's the space we're in, and still learning, still getting the hang of it. But we are at the stage where we're down to about 100 Rand for assessment plus moderation, and freedom to repeat as many times as they wish. And that's something I'm putting out there. Are there limitations to that? But and issues, for example, of plagiarism. What if the cousin comes along and does the assessment? Well, it's built in, it's there all the time, so that you have to have a pretty dedicated cousin to sit there for 3 months doing all the assessments. So it's interesting issues like that which we're wrestling with. And
the cousin will learn at the same time.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, two good prices of work.
So Robin, just before, thank you so much for that. Just before, and guys, I'm just moving us along. So if I do interject and you haven't finished your conversation, put your hand up and I'll allow you to finish. But you just mentioned something really important there, and I was making notes as you were speaking. I think we lose sight of the fact that assessment is an integral part of the learning process, and for a number of reasons. It's not the thing that you do at the end because you have to. And by nature, young people, whomever are being assessed, have an inbuilt anxiety around the assessment process. And they need to be able to feel safe, and they need to be able to feel aspirational. So the assessment process really needs to reinforce their success, which is exactly what you touched on. It actually gives me goosebumps, because I've seen in corporates where I've worked, where young people are brought into a job for the first time. They've given 4 goes at an assessment, and they know on go number 4, if they don't pass, they're out. And assessment number 2 and number 3, the results are getting worse and worse because the anxiety levels are rising. So there's so many other psychological and quality factors that are associated with assessment and setting people up for success that I think you've touched on so well. And all of that translates into cost in terms of learner retention and all of the likes. So I think it's a cost, it's a quality, it's a governance, and it's a learner engagement benefit as well. And so thank you for triggering that. And Jennifer, would you like to just give us your insight?
Yeah, basically, from my perspective, there's a lot of profit margin erosion going on that people are not really aware of. I spent quite a few years, 20 years, in fact, initially traveling around the country doing training, development, and assessments, and everything that my colleagues have been sharing with us, I'd like to endorse it, and it's just giving me flashbacks. Sometimes they're nightmares, I must admit. But yeah, it's a case of the assessment process, the need for the learner to get positive, constructive feedback as soon as possible really impacts on the whole experience. And when they do get that positive interaction from an assessment tool like the one we have as an organization, or any assessment process, it really does boost those individuals' confidence and morale. And it's a case of this profit erosion is not just from a client perspective, but from an individual's confidence perspective and their willingness to develop in themselves. But the key things that I've picked up from an organization perspective, people are just not aware. They focus so much on the delivery and not sufficiently on the assessment, because there's a historical focus in South Africa and maybe in other countries as well, that basically most of the money is something you do because you've got a qualification. That is something that we are really trying to help shift. As Robin was saying, assessment is an integral part of learning. That praxis moment of being able to take a concept and then take that conceptual idea and become aware of it and put it into a practical skill. It's not just something that we need to be aware of from an L&D perspective, but individuals need to be able to be encouraged and embraced to do that. So the affordability of it is something that I know in South Africa we're battling with. So this research that we've embarked on and that Darren has spearheaded here, it really does show that there's so many things as an organization when we're trying to do development in an economy that is strapped for cash, as we have here in South Africa. It sounds like an added expense, but it's actually an investment, as some of the figures as some of our colleagues have shared with us. The fact that you have a rands and cents return of investment, but there's that spin-off or that emotional growth. And I've been taking a number of people through learnerships this year. And historically, I would have had to travel and fly around the country virtually using, I love Zoom, and then the different electronic systems. The growth I've seen in those individuals to become more digitally savvy and more digitally confident is something that I know in the South African economy is not just important from a business perspective, but it's important from an individual perspective. We need to catch up and progress from a digital space. So the numbers that we've got and the numbers that we've shared, I think that as time goes on, it will reflect more in our space in South Africa as more people do embrace a digital approach. And it's that turnaround, that ability to cope with more work. And I say that, and I've actually taken, I need to learn to say no, Darren, because I've now taken on so much more work because it's so easy to do, because it's all been converted to a digital environment. So it's about being aware of that and being able to convey that and creating an awareness in South Africa that is not an added cost, it's actually a cost savings. And that's what we're actually hoping to present from this process. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Jennifer, and everybody on the panel. And the good news is that Darren has a very exciting calculator that's based in the South African context to show us a little later on. And then I think just in summary, some of the insights around that is cost is one element, and there's the cash component cost in terms of savings for something as simple as printing costs, courier costs. And, you know, having to develop business cases very often in my role as learning leads in organizations. We are, in South African terms, often talking in the millions in terms of saving on administration costs by digitizing it. In addition, you're also adding to your organization's sustainability index in terms of your environmental impact and footprint. And I know that sounds funny, but we do report on that in our corporate governance space. And then just in terms of the quality and the trackability and the governance of the process that we are all held accountable for to the authorities and to our learners and to the organizations we serve. So I think these processes are highly valuable to all of us on the call and in business and in our space as training providers. So let's move on to the next critical area, Darren, which is
so,
your
sorry,
number.
just before we move on, just to explain what you're seeing here. So